You really think you can question how we handle our money, Emily? After everything we've done to keep you and Ryan from drowning in bills, I didn't sign up to bankroll your little career ambitions just so you could act like you're the victim here. The cottage, the vacations, the help with the house, it all comes from us, and you seem to have forgotten that. If you can't appreciate the sacrifices we've made to give you this life, maybe you should find your own way without our support. Your husband understands the reality. It's time you did too before you push this family too far. Hi, my name is Emily Harper. I am 28 years old. Those words from my mother-in-law Margaret landed like ice water in the middle of what was supposed to be a quiet evening at the rented cottage on the North Carolina coast. We were only 3 days into the 2-week family getaway my in-laws had arranged and mostly paid for. The living room still smelled faintly of the seafood boil from dinner, and everyone else had gone quiet. My husband Ryan sat beside me on the couch, staring at his phone like it might save him. His sister Laura shifted uncomfortably in the armchair. His cousin Tyler, who had driven down from Raleigh to join us for a few days, suddenly found the pattern on the rug fascinating. Even Robert Margaret's husband cleared his throat, but said nothing. I had felt the shift the moment we arrived. Margaret's generous offer to cover most of the cottage and the groceries had come with an undercurrent I couldn't name at first. Little comments about how some people don't understand the value of family support and how certain jobs make it hard to be present. Ryan had told me to let it go. She's just being herself. He said the first night kissing my forehead like that fixed anything. I had tried. I really had. The next morning, the family group chat lit up while we were still at the breakfast table. A long message from Margaret appeared in the main thread instead of the smaller one she had clearly intended. It was addressed to Ryan and someone named David Ruiz. Ryan's colleague from work who sometimes got looped into family planning because he handled their shared investment account. The text was blunt. Ryan, we need to be clear about Emily's promotion. If she takes that role, it means more travel and late nights. The help we've been giving on the condo payment and the car only continues if she prioritizes family the way we discussed. You know the arrangement. Talk to her before this gets out of hand. I'm not funding a lifestyle where she gets to act independent while we carry the weight. The message sat there for 30 seconds before anyone moved. Laura's phone was the first to buzz again. She had been included in the big group. Tyler's followed. Robert's, mine. Margaret's face went slack for half a second before the familiar, tight smile snapped back into place. "Oh, for heaven's sake," she said, reaching for her phone like she could delete it from everyone's screens. That was meant for the planning thread. Ignore it. But it was already too late. The words were there in black and white on every screen in the room. Ryan's face had gone pale. He looked at me, then at his mother, then back at the phone like he was calculating odds in real time. I stood up. My chair scraped against the tile floor louder than I meant it to. "Arrangement," I said. My voice came out steadier than I felt. "What arrangement, Ryan?" Margaret answered before he could. "Emily, you're overreacting. Families help each other. That's what we do. The fact that you're turning a simple message into some kind of conspiracy tells me exactly why we needed to have this conversation in the first place." Laura set her coffee down carefully. "Mum, that didn't sound like simple help. That sounded like conditions." Margaret's eyes flicked to her daughter with genuine surprise, like she hadn't expected anyone else in the room to read the same words she had written. Tyler stayed silent, but he was no longer looking at the rug. He was looking at Ryan. Ryan finally spoke. Can we talk outside for a minute?" We stepped onto the back deck that overlooked the dunes. The ocean was grey and choppy under the morning clouds. Ryan closed the sliding door behind us. "She's just protective," he said quietly. "The money she's been sending for the condo, it started as a loan when we were short on the down payment. She never made a big deal out of it, so I didn't either. But yeah, she's mentioned a few times that she wants us closer to them. The promotion would make that harder." I felt something cold settle in my chest. "You knew she was attaching strings and you didn't tell me. She was helping us," he said, and there was a defensive edge in his voice. I had never heard directed at me before. We have a nice place because of her. My job is steady, but it doesn't cover everything on its own right now. I thought you'd be grateful. Grateful. The word sat between us like something rotten. I went back inside without answering. Margaret was still at the table scrolling on her phone like nothing had happened. Laura caught my eye and gave a small, uncertain shrug, not quite an apology, but not nothing either. Tyler had moved to the kitchen and was pouring himself more coffee with deliberate slowness. That afternoon, I walked down to the beach alone. My phone buzzed with a text from Jessica, my co-worker, and the only person outside this family I had told about the promotion opportunity. Jessica, how's the vacation going? You okay? I stared at the screen for a long time before typing back. Me, not really, I'll call you later. When I got back to the cottage, Margaret was waiting on the deck with a glass of wine. Ryan stood a few feet behind her, hands in his pockets. Emily, Margaret said, and her voice had that careful, reasonable tone she used when she wanted to sound like the adult in the room. I think we all got a little heated this morning. Why don't we sit down and talk about what's best for everyone, including you? I looked at Ryan. He wouldn't meet my eyes. I felt the first real crack in something I had been calling love for 3 years. It wasn't loud, it was quiet like the sound of a door closing somewhere down a long hallway. I turned and walked back inside without answering her. Behind me I heard Margaret say something low to Ryan, and I heard him answer, but I didn't catch the words. I didn't need to. I already knew whose side he had chosen. The rest of the day passed in a strange, suspended quiet. Laura tried to start a board game after dinner, but no one had the energy. Tyler left early, saying he had an early drive back to Raleigh. Robert went to bed first. Margaret stayed up nursing her wine and scrolling through photos from past family trips on her phone, occasionally making comments about how nice it was when everyone got along. I lay awake beside Ryan that night, listening to the waves and the sound of his breathing. He hadn't tried to talk to me again. At some point around 3 in the morning, my phone lit up on the nightstand. A text from David Ruiz, the colleague whose name had been in the message. David, hey, Emily. I think that message was meant for me and Ryan only. Sorry it went to the big group. Margaret's been pretty clear with us at work about what she expects if the financial help continues. Just thought you should know it wasn't an accident on my end. I read it twice. Then I turned the phone face down and stared at the ceiling until the sky outside started to turn grey. The next morning, I packed my bag while Ryan was still in the shower. I didn't make a scene. I didn't slam doors or raise my voice. I simply folded my clothes, zipped the suitcase, and carried it to the front door. Margaret was in the kitchen making coffee. She watched me set the bag down. Running away, she asked, and there was something almost satisfied in her voice. I looked at her for a long moment. I'm choosing not to stay where I'm not respected. She laughed once short and sharp. Respect is earned, Emily, and right now you're not doing a very good job of earning it. I didn't answer. I opened the door, stepped outside, and called Jessica. She answered on the second ring. I need a ride, I said. My voice sounded strange even to me, from the Outer Banks. Can you come? There was a pause. Then Jessica said, I'll be there in 4 hours. Don't let them talk you into staying. I hung up and sat on the front steps of the cottage watching the ocean and waiting for the sound of a car that would take me away from the people who had decided my life was something they got to manage with money and conditions. Behind me, the door opened. It was Laura. You don't have to do this alone, she said quietly. I saw the message too. Mum's been different about you for a while. I just didn't want to see it. I nodded but didn't turn around. Thanks. She hesitated, then went back inside. A few minutes later I heard raised voices. Margaret's sharp, Ryan's lower and defensive. I didn't listen to the words. I had already heard enough. When Jessica's car pulled into the driveway 4 hours later, I stood up, grabbed my suitcase, and walked toward it without looking back at the cottage. The door stayed closed. No one came out to stop me. No one called my name. I got in the passenger seat. Jessica didn't ask questions right away. She just reached over and squeezed my hand once hard, then put the car in reverse. As we drove away, I felt something inside me give way, not dramatically, not with tears yet, but with a slow, cold certainty. The version of my life where family support meant love instead of leverage had just ended. I didn't know what came next. I only knew I couldn't stay in the story they had written for me. The car pulled away from the cottage, and I kept my eyes on the road ahead instead of the rearview mirror. Jessica drove without asking questions at first, just letting the silence sit between us while the ocean disappeared behind the dunes. 4 hours later, we reached the condo Ryan and I shared outside Wilmington. My hands were still shaking when I unlocked the door. I told Jessica everything on the Drive the Group message, the arrangement my mother-in-law had been running through my husband, the way the financial help had started as quiet offers and turned into conditions. She listened, nodded once and said, "That's not family helping. That's someone buying control and calling it love." The words landed hard because they were true. Ryan was already home when we got there. He stood in the kitchen with his arms crossed like he had been waiting. Jessica gave me a look that said she would stay if I needed her, but I shook my head. She hugged me quickly and left. The door clicked shut behind her, and the condo felt smaller than it ever had. My husband didn't waste time. You didn't have to leave like that. Mum was just trying to get everyone on the same page. I set my suitcase down harder than I meant to, on the same page about what about her deciding whether I get to take a promotion because she's been paying part of our mortgage. He rubbed the back of his neck the way he always did when he was avoiding something. It's not that simple. She helped us when we needed it. The down payment, the first year of payments when my bonus was short. She never asked for anything at first. Then she started talking about how nice it would be if we were closer to them, how your job keeps you too busy. I didn't think it was a big deal until the message. You didn't think it was a big deal that she was using money to tell me what I could do with my career? My voice stayed level, but something inside me had gone very still. He looked away. She's my mum. She worries. And yeah, the money makes things easier. I thought we were on the same team about that. The same team. I almost laughed, but it would have come out wrong. Instead, I walked past him to the bedroom and started pulling clothes from the closet. Not everything, just enough for a few days. I needed space to think without his mother's voice in the room. My phone rang while I was folding a sweater. Margaret's name lit up the screen. I answered on speaker so my husband could hear every word. "Emily," she said, and the sarcasm was already there, smooth and practiced. "I see you've decided to make a scene instead of having an adult conversation. Very mature." I kept my voice even. "I saw the message you meant for Ryan and his colleague, the one about pulling the condo help if I take the promotion. That felt pretty adult to me." There was a short pause, then she sighed like I was the one being difficult. "You're twisting things. Families have expectations. We've supported you both because we love you, but love doesn't mean we have to fund choices that hurt the family. Your husband understands that. Ask him." I looked at Ryan. He was staring at the floor. "She's not wrong about the money," he said quietly after she hung up. "We can't afford this place without her help right now. If you take that promotion and start traveling, she's going to see it as you choosing work over us. I don't want to fight about this every month." The words hit like a second message I hadn't seen coming. He had told me weeks ago over dinner that he was proud of me for going after the role. He had even said he would handle any extra time I needed. Now the version he gave his mother was different, and I was hearing it in our own bedroom. My sister-in-law Laura texted a few minutes later. "Laura, I'm still at the cottage. Mum's on the phone with Dad about handling you." I told her the message was out of line. She said I was being dramatic. I don't know what to do with that. I stared at the screen. At least one person in the family was willing to say the message was wrong. It didn't fix anything, but it was something. Ryan left for work the next morning without much more conversation. I stayed home and opened the folder where we kept the condo paperwork. The mortgage statements showed regular transfers from an account I didn't recognize. When I called the bank, the representative confirmed the extra payments had been coming from Margaret Caldwell for the past 18 months. No formal agreement, just recurring transfers labelled family support. I was still sitting at the kitchen table with the statements when my phone buzzed again. Another text from Ryan's colleague, David Ruiz. David, sorry again about the group chat. Margaret's been looping me in because I manage the investment side for Ryan. She's been clear that the help stops if your job pulls you away too much. I thought you should know it wasn't just one message. There have been a few conversations. I didn't answer him. I forwarded the text to my husband instead. When he came home that evening, the air in the condo was different. He read the messages, set his phone down, and said, "She's just looking out for our future. You're making this bigger than it is." I felt the last thread of something I had been holding on to snap. Our future, or the one she's paying for. He didn't have an answer that didn't sound like the same excuse. We went to bed without touching. I lay awake, listening to him breathe and wondering how long he had been managing two versions of our life, one where he supported me and one where he reported back to his mother about whether I was staying in line. The next afternoon, my mother-in-law showed up at the condo without calling. Robert was with her. She walked in like she still had a key, even though she didn't. She set her purse on the counter and looked at the half-packed bag I had left by the door. "Still throwing your little fit?" she asked. The sarcasm was sharper now, no longer pretending to be concerned. "I came to talk sense into you before you ruined something good over one misunderstood text." Robert stayed near the door, quiet. He had always been the quieter one. I stayed standing. The text wasn't misunderstood. Neither were the transfers. "You've been paying part of our mortgage and using it to tell me what job I can take. That's not support. That's leverage." My mother-in-law smiled small and cold. Leverage is such an ugly word. I prefer investment. We invested in this marriage, in this home. Investments come with expectations. If you can't meet them, then maybe the investment needs to be reconsidered. She let the sentence hang. The threat was clear without being shouted. Pull the money and Ryan and I would have to figure out the mortgage on our own salaries. I knew the numbers. We would be underwater fast. My husband stood in the kitchen doorway, not moving to stand beside me or beside her. He was just there watching like this was a negotiation he had already accepted the terms of. I felt the pressure building behind my eyes, but I didn't cry. Not yet. Instead, I picked up my phone and opened the banking app. I transferred what little I had saved into a separate account I'd opened years ago for emergencies and never touched. It wasn't much. It wouldn't cover the gap for long, but it was mine. My mother-in-law watched the screen. "That won't last you very long if you keep acting like this." I looked at her, then at my husband. "I'm not asking for permission anymore. I'm telling you both that I'm taking the promotion if they offer it. And if that means the help stops, then it stops." The silence that followed was heavier than anything she had said. My mother-in-law picked up her purse. "You'll regret this," she said, and the words were almost gentle. Almost. "When the bills come due and your little job can't cover them, don't come crying to us." She walked out. Robert followed without a word. My husband stayed where he was. I waited until the door closed before I spoke again. "You can go with them if that's where you stand." He didn't move. "I live here too." Then start acting like it. He left for work again the next morning without saying much. I spent the day on the phone with my boss confirming the promotion details and the travel requirements. They wanted an answer by the end of the week. I told them I needed 2 more days. That evening, another text came from Laura. "Laura, Mom told Dad she's done coddling you. She's talking about stopping the transfers next month." I tried to tell her she was going too far. She said I was choosing sides against the family. I don't know what that even means anymore. I read it twice. My sister-in-law was pulling away from her own mother in real time, and it still didn't feel like a win. It just felt like more proof that the version of family I had believed in was never real. My husband came home late. He smelled like the bar near his office. He sat on the edge of the bed and said, "Mom called me. She's serious about the money. She thinks if we give in now, you'll keep pushing." I didn't look at him. "And what do you think? He was quiet for a long time. I think we can't afford to lose the help right now. I think you should at least talk to her again before you decide." That was the moment I understood the full shape of the choice in front of me. I could stay, accept the conditions, keep the condo and the fragile piece, and slowly disappear inside the version of my life my mother-in-law was willing to pay for. Or I could keep walking toward the door I'd already opened and see what happened when the money stopped. I stood up and walked to the closet. I pulled out the rest of my clothes and started packing the second suitcase. My husband watched me. "Emily, don't do this." I zipped the bag. I already did. He didn't try to stop me. He just sat there while I carried both suitcases to the door. Before I left, I turned back once. "You told me you supported the promotion," I said. "You said it in this room. I have the text. Your mother has the version where you agreed to talk me out of it. I'm done living between those two stories." I closed the door behind me. The hallway was quiet. I took the elevator down, loaded the suitcases into my car, and drove to Jessica's apartment across town. She opened the door before I knocked. "You can stay as long as you need," she said. I nodded. The tears finally came. They're not loud, just steady like something that had been waiting for permission. I sat on her couch with my phone in my hand and watched another text from my mother-in-law arrive. "Margaret running away won't change the facts. The money was never free. You knew that, or you should have." I didn't answer. I turned the phone off and set it on the coffee table. Jessica brought me a blanket and a glass of water. She didn't tell me it would be okay. She just sat with me while the first real wave of what I had lost rolled through. I had walked away from the cottage. I had walked away from the condo. I had walked away from the version of family that came with a price tag and a list of conditions. What I hadn't figured out yet was whether I could afford to keep walking once the bills started coming in without anyone else's money to catch them. The choice was no longer theoretical. It was here, sitting in someone else's living room at 11 o'clock at night with 2 suitcases and a promotion I still hadn't officially accepted. My mother-in-law had been right about one thing. The money was never free. I just hadn't understood how expensive it would be to stop paying for it with pieces of myself. The days at Jessica's apartment blurred into a strange, suspended quiet. I slept on her couch, woke up to the smell of her coffee, and spent hours staring at my phone without unlocking it. My mother-in-law's last text stayed unread. My husband had sent 2 messages, one asking if I was coming home, the other saying his mother just wanted to talk. I didn't answer either. The silence felt like the only honest thing left between us. On the 4th morning, Jessica handed me a mug and sat across from me at her small kitchen table. "You can stay here as long as you need," she said. "But you also don't have to decide everything today." I nodded, but my mind was already moving. The promotion offer sat in my email deadline 2 days away. The condo payments would come due in 3 weeks. Without the transfers from my mother-in-law, Ryan, and I would have to split what we could actually afford, which meant one of us moving out or the place going up for sale. I opened the banking app again and looked at the numbers. They didn't lie. The help had been real, so had the price tag attached to it. That afternoon, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. It was the bank. The representative confirmed what I already suspected: the extra mortgage payments had always come with no formal paperwork, just recurring transfers from Margaret Caldwell. When I asked if there was any way to remove the help without affecting the loan, she paused. "The account is in both your names. If the payments stop, you'll need to cover the full amount yourselves or refinance. I can't advise on the family side of it." I thanked her and hung up. The family side was exactly the problem. Laura texted again that evening. "Laura, Mom told me she's stopping the transfers starting next month. She said you made your choice. I told her she was punishing you for having a backbone. She hung up on me. I'm staying at Tyler's for a few days. I don't want to be at the cottage with them right now." My sister-in-law was pulling away in real time. It should have felt like a small victory. Instead, it just felt like another crack in something that had never been solid. My husband came to Jessica's apartment the next morning. He knocked instead of using a key he no longer had. When I opened the door, he looked tired, the kind of tired that comes from choosing sides and realizing both of them cost something. "Can we talk?" he asked. Jessica stepped into the hallway with her purse. "I'll go get coffee. Take your time." He sat on the edge of the couch like he wasn't sure he was allowed to be there. Mum's serious about the money. She thinks if we give in on this, you'll keep pushing boundaries. She's not wrong that things have been easier with her help. I stayed standing. You told me you supported the promotion. I still have the text from 3 weeks ago where you said you were proud of me for going after it. Your mother has the version where you agreed to talk me out of it. Which one was the lie? He looked at his hands. Both were true at the time. I didn't want to fight with her. I didn't want to fight with you. I thought I could keep everyone happy. That's not how this works, I said. You picked the version that kept the money coming. You just didn't tell me the cost. He didn't argue. He just sat there while the last piece of the man I had married settled into place. He wasn't cruel. He wasn't even deliberately dishonest. He was simply someone who had learned early that keeping his mother's approval was easier than risking her disappointment. The money had made that choice comfortable for both of them. I'm not coming back to the condo, I said. Not while the help is tied to whether I'm allowed to take a job. I'm taking the promotion if they offer it. I'll figure out the rest. He nodded slowly. Mum's going to see that as you choosing work over the family. I'm choosing not to be managed, I said. There's a difference. He stood up. For a second I thought he might reach for me. Oh, he didn't. I'll tell her. She won't like it. I know. He left without another word. The door closed behind him with a soft click that sounded louder than it should have. The promotion came through the next day. My boss Karen Ellis called personally. We'd like you to start in 2 weeks. The travel will be significant the first 6 months, but the team is excited to have you. I said yes, before I let myself think about the mortgage or the empty side of the bed or the way my mother-in-law's voice still lived in the back of my head. Karen didn't ask why my voice sounded thin. She just told me HR would send the paperwork. That evening, I drove back to the condo while Ryan was at work. I packed the rest of my things in 2 hours. The framed photo of us from our wedding went into a box I labelled Donate. The yellow legal pad I had once used to track our shared bills went into the trash. I left a note on the kitchen counter with the date I would stop contributing to the mortgage and the name of a real estate agent who could help list the place if he wanted to sell. My mother-in-law called while I was carrying the last box to the car. I answered. "You're really doing this," she said. No sarcasm this time, just flat disbelief. "After everything we've done for you." I set the box down on the trunk. "You didn't do it for me. You did it so you could tell me what my life was allowed to look like. I'm done negotiating the terms of my own existence." She was quiet for a moment. Then the sarcasm returned sharper than before. "You'll be back when the first bill you can't pay shows up. Don't expect us to keep the door open." "I won't," I said, and hung up. I blocked her number before I drove away. Then I blocked Ryan's. The silence that followed felt like the first clean breath I had taken in months. Laura called 2 days later from Tyler's phone. "Mum's telling everyone you abandoned the family over a job. Dad's not saying much." I told her I saw the messages. She said I was being dramatic again. "I'm not going to the cottage for Thanksgiving. Tyler said I can stay with him." I thanked her. I didn't ask her to choose sides. She was already doing that on her own, and it was costing her something too. The first week in the small one-bedroom I found near Jessica's place was harder than I expected. The rent was higher than my share of the condo had been. The promotion came with a raise, but not enough to cover the gap immediately. I ate a lot of rice and beans and told myself this was temporary. Some nights I lay awake and wondered if my mother-in-law had been right, if respect was something I had to earn by staying small. Then the breakdown came on a Tuesday night, 3 weeks after I left the condo. I had just finished unpacking the last box when a notification popped up from an old shared album Ryan and I had used for photos. A picture from the cottage trip loaded automatically the 4 of us on the deck, my mother-in-law smiling with her arm around Robert Ryan, laughing at something I had said. The caption she had added at the time read, "Family is everything." I sat on the floor of the new apartment with the photo still glowing on my screen and cried until my throat hurt. Not quiet tears. The kind that come from the center of your chest when you finally let yourself feel how much you lost. I had walked away from the money, from the easy version of my marriage, from the family that had only ever loved me on their terms. I had chosen myself, and the cost was sitting in every empty corner of this smaller, quieter life. Jessica found me there an hour later when she stopped by with takeout. She didn't tell me I had done the right thing. She just sat on the floor beside me and let me cry until I couldn't anymore. "I keep wondering if I should have stayed," I said when I could speak. "If keeping the peace would have been easier than this." She handed me a tissue. "Peace that costs you the right to make your own choices isn't peace, it's just quiet control." I nodded. The words didn't fix the ache, but they made it smaller. The weeks that followed were slow and uneven. I started the new job and learned how to travel with a carry-on and a budget spreadsheet. Laura texted every few days with small updates. She had started seeing a therapist. She had told her mother she wouldn't be part of any more conversations that treated me like a problem to be managed. Tyler stayed neutral but stopped joining family calls when my name came up. Robert sent one short message through Laura. "I'm sorry it came to this. It was the closest thing to an apology I would ever get from that side of the family." My husband never reached out again after the day he came to Jessica's. I heard through Laura that he had moved back into his parents' house temporarily while they sorted the condo. The transfers from my mother-in-law stopped the month I left. The mortgage became something Ryan had to face on his own salary, plus whatever she decided to give him now that I was no longer in the picture. I didn't ask for details. The numbers weren't mine to carry anymore. One evening in late fall, I sat at my new kitchen table with the promotion paperwork and a pen. The raise had finally started to close the gap. I could afford the apartment without anyone else's money. The realization didn't feel like triumph. It felt like the end of a long debt I hadn't known I was paying. I signed the documents and put them in the envelope. Then I opened my phone and deleted the old family group chat. I didn't need to see what they said about me when I wasn't in the room. The lesson didn't arrive all at once. It came in pieces in the way my chest loosened when I stopped waiting for my mother-in-law's approval, in the way I could say no to a work trip without calculating whether it would make someone else angry, in the way I started to believe that support without respect was never support at all. It was leverage dressed up as love. I had spent years trying to earn something that had conditions attached from the beginning. I still missed the version of family I had thought I had. Some nights the missing turned into anger at myself for not seeing it sooner. Other nights it was just sadness for the woman who had believed that keeping everyone happy was the same as being loved. That woman was gone. I didn't know who I was becoming yet, only that she would not go back to negotiating the terms of her own life. Thank you for listening to my story. If you've ever watched someone use help as a way to keep you small, what boundary did you wish you had set sooner?